I come here today on behalf of the Israeli state and the Israeli people. After the 7th of October, the Black Saturday, with the biggest massacre in the last decades, we're under the Hamas attack. More than 1,400 people murdered. Babies, women, elderly people. We are also here to bring the voice of more than 220 people that kidnapped. I have behind part of their family that joined to the UN Council today. We say clearly and loudly, bring them home. They are civilians. Right now, while we are here, there are children, 2 years old, 3 years old, as hostages by the Hamas. Hamas is worse than ISIS, and like Chancellor Scholz says, they are the new Nazis. There is not two sides at this moment. There is only one side to support in front of the aggression of ISIS. Therefore, I decided to cancel my meeting with the Secretary General later on today, since we need a clear and loud voice in regards to what happened. We're here to say never again, and I would like to thank all the countries to come to support Israel, President Biden, Chancellor Scholz, President Macron, Prime Minister Meloni, and many others that understand that we are fighting for Israel, but we're also fighting for the entire free world. Otherwise, West will be the next. But we are determined to do everything to eliminate totally the Hamas. I also ask Qatar, which is financed for more than 10 years, Hamas, which is giving the harbor to the leaders of Hamas, to work to release all the hostages. It's in your hand. You are responsible to them. Do it immediately. Thank you all. I prefer that after me, Ambassador Erdan will say a few words, but then after I think that it's more important to hear the families there. Thank you. Ambassador Erdan.
Thank you, Minister Cohen. I would like to salute your decision to cancel your meeting with the Secretary General. And I agree, it is more important than all of us that you will hear the families that our loved ones are now being held hostage in Gaza. I want to remind and maybe explain why there was a need to cancel the meeting, because I've been serving here for the last 3 years. And I saw and I felt the impartiality of the Secretary General and how he gives the feelings that he doesn't care for this, how he doesn't really care. Expressing empty words is not enough. He doesn't really care for the suffering of the Israeli civilians. But this morning, when he started his speech at the Security Council by saying that Hamas attacks did not happen in a vacuum, this is really something that every decent person, it should be unfathomable for each and every one of us. Mr. Secretary General, the UN was established to prevent atrocities, to prevent such atrocities like the barbaric atrocities that Hamas committed. But the UN is failing. The UN is failing, and you, Mr. Secretary General, have lost all morality and impartiality. Because when you say those terrible words that these heinous attacks did not happen in a vacuum, you are tolerating terrorism. And by tolerating terrorism, you are justifying terrorism. Hamas, as the minister explained, beheaded babies, burned families, raped women, abducted kids, babies, Holocaust survivors. And the SG is blaming the victim? You are blaming Israel? This is a pure blood libel. This is a pure blood libel, and I think that the Secretary General must resign. Because from now on, every day that he is here in this building, unless he apologizes immediately, today we called him to apologize, there's no justification to the existence of this building. This building was established to prevent atrocities. How can the Secretary General, with his words, justify in any way the terrible atrocities that happened to our civilians, innocent civilians? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have time for a few questions. Yes, Michael.
Do you support the resignation of Mr. Guterres?
Yes, Michael.
Minister Cohen, Secretary General Guterres' office told me he stands by his words earlier today. He said he was clear there was no justification for terror. I asked, why then did he then list immediately a list of Palestinian grievances? I was told by his office, well, you can't solve the problem until you know the causes of the problem. I wanted to get your reaction to that.
There is no causes to such a massacre. To behead babies, to rape women, to burn them alive, to kidnap more than 200 people. Right now there is small children and babies in captive. There is any cause for this? There is no cause for this. And shame on him.
Add to that, one second.
Sorry, thank you.
I'll add to that, there is no middle line. If you don't stand with Israel today, you are a supporter of Hamas. As clear as that. Now you can ask your question.
For Minister Cohen and Ambassador Erdan, are you satisfied with the kind of negotiations that are going on? I mean, I'd be crazy. Most people would be. How do you find out what's going on with your families? And is there any way to find out with intermediaries such as Qatar? Thank you.
The biggest patron of the Hamas is Qatar. They have financed them for more than a decade. They give a shelter to the leaders. So it's in their hand. And therefore they should act immediately and release all the hostages immediately, today. It's the responsible of the Emir of Qatar. It's in his hand. And he financed Hamas all day. So now, the minimum that he should do is to work to release all the hostages.
Yes, go ahead. Here.
Minister, what will be the relations with Israel and the United Nations from now on?
I think, now speak on behalf of the minister, it's too early to call, but definitely we will have to make an assessment regarding our relations with the UN We have been complaining for a long time. The minister knows all the details, how the UN and the UN's representatives who are stationed in Israel, they distort the reality. They don't report what is really happening. They take things out of context. They never report. For example, they refuse to verify our claims, for example, again, about terror attacks, rock throwing, Molotov cocktails, every number coming out of Gaza that we all know is being controlled by the terrorists of Hamas. They embrace as if these were the words of God. Like every number, every argument that comes from Gaza, the UN takes at face value. So this kind of distortions, this kind of moral bankruptcy is unacceptable. And after what the leader of these organizations just said this morning, supporting terrorism, there's no other way to explain it. Obviously, our government will have to reassess our relations with the UN and its officials that are stationed in our region.
But just to clarify another issue, I think that Secretary General Guterres is not represented the most and the important member here in the UN. Definitely not the United States, Britain, Germany, France, which all of them supporting Israel, designated Hamas as a terror organization and working very hard to release the hostages.
Chitin from Anadolu. Secretary Blinken also mentioned that humanitarian pauses need to be considered in Gaza to get civilians out of harm's way. What do you think about his proposed proposition? Thank you.
Israel is working according to international law. We give humanitarian aid, water, food, and medicine. We never targeted people, never. We never targeted women, men, women, children. We are only targeting Hamas terrorists. That's all.
Okay, we have time for two more questions.
It's about the issue that, with us or against us. We heard this before in the past that didn't work. Can you tell to the opinion of the world, of the public opinion of the world, can you be for the hostage, for the release of the hostage? Can you be for Israel and also don't want Palestinian civilian dead? There are more than 5,000 now. Can you be now today in the world like this?
You know that we are protecting our people from rockets. Hamas using people to protect their rockets. We actually give notification in advance in order not to harm civilian. This is not our way. This is not our value. But Hamas are the new Nazis. That's it. You see how they glorify their viciousness, their evilness. Therefore, in this case, there is only one side.
One last question.
Hamas as the Iran's proxy, and also the President Biden called, and President Biden said that this attack by Hamas was conducted to stop the negotiation process for normalization of relationship between Arab countries and Israel. How do you assess the situation right now regarding of the normalization and also the role of Islamic Republic of Iran in this war?
Definitely one of the three objectives of the terror attack was to harm the peace and normalization process in our region. But I think that it's clearly emphasized that Israel and most of the Muslim and Arab country in our region face the same threat: Iran and the terror organization. So definitely it will take time, since right now in a war, but I think that they will not able to achieve this goal. Thank you very much.